Welcome to Lecture 3 in the Physical Training from the Ancient Philosophers free course. Today we are talking about the philosopher Plato and his understanding of the concept of beauty as we further use the ancient wisdom of the classical Greek philosophers to imbibe, imbue, and to inject meaning, perspective, value into our physical training in the modern world, and most importantly, to utilize it for its greatest value in allowing us to drive towards the best versions of ourselves in body, mind, and spirit, as each of these ancient philosophers have done. If you haven't checked out the first two lectures in this series, Lecture 1 is a simple introduction into what we're doing and a brief introduction into the different philosophers that we will be exploring. Lecture 2 was on Socrates and his idea of dialogue or truthful exchange as a way to find out the nature and the truth of things in philosophy and how we can apply that idea to find deep meaning in, let's say, opening ourselves up to the truth that comes with approaching physical training and competition with an open heart and the aim of utilizing it to get better. And with that frame, we are going to dive right into Socrates' most famous student, and in fact, the person who wrote down all the things that Socrates taught, Plato. And when we're talking about Plato and an animating idea from that philosopher's life to help us really extract out the most value of physical training today, we are talking about the idea and the concept of beauty. So similar with Socrates, I'm not going to go into a big time biography of Plato or any of his really monumental ideas. We're only pinpointing and highlighting one specific area of his vast thought, and we are directly applying that to what we can utilize in our own physical training today in the modern world. So if you're interested in Plato, tons of great information out there, or if you've got a specific question, come talk to me in the chat, in the comments below, or there are ways which I'll detail later or in the notes on how you can message me directly. Okay? But one of the things that Plato is most famous for is his, description of philosophy with the analogy or the anagram of the cave, right? So Plato's cave is this idea that the world we live in is kind of like illusory, and it's kind of like a shadow world where we're not really seeing things as they truly are. And the role of the philosopher is to effectively escape the cave, to see the world of truth that's beyond the physical that we're all sort of bound by in our bodies. See the truth, bring it back. Okay? And so the role of the philosopher for Plato is to forge ahead into the dangers of truth. And I just love this for so many good reasons. Plato is very similar to Socrates in thinking about the truth of concepts and the truth of materials around us, right? He's interested in the nature of things, and we've got to get beyond the physical, right? This is the idea of metaphysics, beyond the physical, and is what most people generally think about when they think about philosophy, when we're talking about the definitions of things, the nature of things. Oftentimes it's related in a metaphysical or beyond physical plane where the perfect ideas or the perfect forms of each of these things, either material or immaterial, can be understood, right? So this is like the realm of ideas, the realm of abstract thinking. Now, when thinking about what can we learn about physical training, exercise, sport, and competition, we have to think about the deep truth then that's revealed through our bodily motions in terms of power, performance, expression, feeling, utility, but also something like aesthetics, right? And aesthetics big fancy word for preferences or taste or culture or things we find beautiful, right? So one of the things that Plato teaches us about a concept that's familiar to all of us, but one of those things where if I asked you to define it, you'd have a big problem. Similar to what we talked about last lecture when Socrates was going around to say like the jurists and the politicians and the judges and asking them things like, hey, what's justice? What's truth? What's power? And they would know beauty is a word we use all the time, but it's not something that we really have a solid grasp on. So when we're trying to think about physical motions, exercise, sport, and competition, when we're trying to extract some deep value from the ancients, the best place where we can go for Plato is this idea of beauty. And beauty is related to truth in the sense that for Plato, beauty reveals the goodness of the world. So when we see something that's beautiful, when we look at something that's beautiful, when we hear something that's beautiful, when we experience something that's beautiful, that's related to the ultimate truth, and therefore can be related to something like goodness, right? Making the world a better place. So when we're thinking then about the philosopher's role in uncovering what is it about these motions that can provide meaning in our lives and purpose and aim and direction and point us up, right, towards the top of the pyramid to self-actualize, we need to focus on the beauty of the movements that we are engaged in to uncover meaning. Now, when thinking about sporting virtues, right, or the quality of our character, the good characteristics, right, the things that we're known about by other people to consistently do that are known to be good qualities, we also have to think about the beautiful expressions that can follow or indeed complement or maybe even come before the generation of those virtues. And when we're talking about something like beauty, goodness, and truth, the ancient Greeks and somebody like Plato believed that the athletic male body was a perfect forum of beauty, right? So if we go back in time and we ask Plato, hey, show me beauty, he might point you to a statue of an athlete in motion. One of the most famous of these statues is the Discobulus, which I'm sure you may have seen, which is that amazing ancient Greek statue of the athlete throwing the discus, right? The body's kind of tilted. You can see all the muscles in beautiful definition. And it's not necessarily just a superficial beauty. Oh, there's jacked muscles. Oh, there's like a shredded physique in front of us, right? It's what that shredded physique exemplifies. What does it actually represent? What does it mean? And then unpacking that and seeing that, oh, it's not just the vanity. It's not just the superficiality of the body, but it's what the body represents. And beauty in terms of the athletic male body, or just the athletic body in general, expresses something like time and dedication, right? Submitting yourself to the obligation of physical training, to struggle, to sacrifice, right? To grow through giving away. And then to have a moment in competition where it all comes together in that record, that moment, that play, that execution of a technique or a skill that's been worked on tirelessly so that it appears to be effortless in execution, but that's just the result of hours and hours and hours and hours of discipline. So the excellence of athletic pursuit is represented through the beauty of the body. And ultimately, if we're trying to relate this back to what Socrates was telling us about sort of like the pure and open heart that searches for truth in the exchange of the competition between, say, man and clock, man and nature, or man versus man, When an athlete brings together all of their faculties, mind, body, and spirit, toils, struggles, trains, sacrifices, dedicates themselves to honing their craft, acquiring talent and skill, and then representing that as an expression of self. So it's not just me trying to win, it's me trying to proclaim that this is the best I have to offer of myself. Well, then sport, physical training, competition can become this incredible artistic expression of goodness through the body. So it's creative, it's imaginary, it's exploratory, it's passionate. It's related to the truth about who we are, what we admire, what we value, what we want to be known by, what we enjoy doing. So Plato is alerting us to the importance of the aesthetic, of preference, taste, subjective appreciation, what we enjoy, what we love. And this is sort of tilting us a little bit toward our third philosopher, Aristotle, but I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Now, just as with Socrates, and as we will do with Aristotle as well, how does this relate to the idea of embodiment, right? Because really what we're after in the modern world is bringing this powerful idea that we are bodies, minds, and spirits all in one harmonious relationship with each other, as opposed to a body over a mind or a mind over a body. Because ultimately, this is what is going to allow us to unleash that ancient wisdom through our physical training in the present. So there's kind of a problem when we're talking about the idea of the body and mind and the soul being one when we are concerned with Plato. And he was not a believer in that idea. He actually believed that the soul was much higher than the body. But that doesn't preclude us or stop us from applying the deep ideal that beauty is related to truth and goodness that we can then utilize in our own lives to find meaning, joy, creativity, and passion through particular motions that we feel are beautiful, both when we perform them and maybe when we watch or when we train to perform them, right? So beauty helps us understand the meaning of motion, right? I'm a trail runner. The first time I went trail running, I got hooked on trail running. Why? Because I was running as fast as I could down a kind of a tricky downhill where there's, little bumps, ridges, there's exposed roots, there's rocks. So you can't just sort of run straight down the hill. You got to run and bound and jump and short step and long jump over a couple of those obstacles. And I just remember it. I don't think I'll ever forget this. There's one part kind of at the bottom of the hill where it's just set up for you perfectly to jump off and catch a little bit of that zero gravity. And it's almost like it's a split second, but it lasts forever. Kind of a moment where I'm gliding and soaring through the air and thinking, where has this been my entire life? Because I'm someone that loves hiking. I love nature. I love being out in the forests. But I also love pushing it. I love sweating, and I love that challenge of physical exertion. I've never done this before. I've never done trail running before, and it opened up this entire new universe to me. Where I sort of saw, oh my gosh, this is something I don't just want to do today, but tomorrow, next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the road. Because this feeling of beauty inside of me, this sort of truth of goodness, was so overwhelming and so strong that I'm still feeling it literally in this moment where I'm expressing it back to you. And this is maybe one of the biggest lessons we can take from the ancients in applying their wisdom to our physical training today. Sport speaks to our souls, right? If we want to utilize physical training for its greatest value, we shouldn't aim it just at the body, right? Which is, I'm going to work out so that I can look good and that I can maintain my physical health, which is great. These are great aims, but that's like level one. If we want the deepest value, if we want to extract the most meaning out of these activities, we aim it right here. Aim it at the heart. Aim it at your spirit. And how do we know that we are engaging our spirits? Well, that's our interest. That's our passion. That's the things that excite us, right? I love trail running. I love watching hockey. But there's like thousands of different sports out there for you to go play or for you to watch. So if you don't like running, but you love swimming, great. Go out and swim more, right? I work with a guy who does longboarding, for example, as the thing that sparks his soul. And so when we are trying to extract deep meaning and purpose from our physical training, we have to play sports, train in ways, and compete in activities that we love doing just for their own sake, right? I trail run, even if it's bad for my health, right? If you took away those objective goods of, oh, I'm increasing my cardiovascular, oh, I'm getting out in nature for like a mental reset, oh, I'm strengthening up my muscles and my bones by subjecting them to this sort of like strength and cardio workout that the trails kind of force you into. Even if I took away all those things, I would still be doing it. And you know why? Because I love it. I absolutely adore the motions, and when I'm doing them, I feel alive. So the movements themselves mean something to me, right? They are a part of the way that I show the world the best parts of myself. Just as we are creative in the arts with song, music, literature, painting, drawing, sculpting, right? Or it doesn't necessarily have to be arts, but it can be like crafts, right? Hobbies. Like we all know that crafts person who maybe they're not a professional woodworker, but they go into the garage, right? And they've got all their tools and they create beautiful pieces for their friends and family, or someone who's got like a hot rod or a car that they build, right? On the side. There's this deliberate acquisition of skill in order to get better at the thing you're doing just because you love doing it and want to be better at it. As adults, we're told we shouldn't necessarily direct this particular creative energy towards the worlds of sport because that's laden with things like physical injury or maybe a mismatched expectation or potential or even interest when it comes to like what we should be doing to cultivate ourselves in the adult world. That is baloney. That's bunk. That's bogus. Like, if we want to utilize physical training to become the best that we can, and indeed physical training may be one of the greatest activities, hint, hint, this is what the ancients are alerting us to, because of the unity of body, mind, and spirit that it takes to excel in any one of these physical endeavors. Like, if we're not employing the spirit in terms of passion, creativity, imagination, joy, love, well, we're certainly nowhere close to operating at anywhere near our best potentials. Let's just think about it. Love is the thing that allows you to sacrifice willingly. Like, if you're a parent, I don't even need to go into this. Like, think about all the things you willingly give up for your own lives in order to fulfill the role and the obligations and responsibilities you have as a parent towards your child, right? It's obvious. You give away these things so easily because you love the child. You love what you have to do in order to provide for them. So we need to figure out that same willingness to sacrifice, because physical training is difficult. It takes time. It takes effort. We want to quit. We don't want to start. So if we can employ that heart, right, the truth that's inside of us, right, the pure and openness that is courageous to look for the truth in a dialogue or an exchange, well, we should also want to employ the things that spark that heart, that light it on fire, and that make it want to go after things in the world just because we desire to make them happen. So as always, we're going to end this guy off with a short little reflection activity. So If you want to continue the conversation, you can use the comments, right? So just post below, and I'm happy to provide direct feedback or answer a question. Also, in the notes for the video, there'll be a way for you to message me directly if you want to, say, share these answers personally and get into a little bit of a one-on-one exchange. That is amazing, and I would love to help you out with that. So go ahead and check out those details and send me that message. Or you can simply just keep a reflection journal to yourself that helps you better understand these ideas and then implement them into direct action into the world. So beautiful, broad questions as always. First one, how important is beauty to your appreciation of sport? And I don't want you to think about a specific definition of beauty. I just want you to think about the idea of beauty in sport. So as broad and open as you can be. Does how we play sometimes matter more than the outcome of play? This gets to like why we do something, right? If sport is all about winning and losing, what does it matter about how I go about doing it as long as I get the outcome that I want? That is not the way we're going to be able to utilize the heart and passion and joy and love in our training. It's how we play that matters. A really great example would be thinking about certain teams that have certain characters and that their fans or supporters demand that they play. Hockey is a great example of this. In Canada, we do not want to win playing a different style of hockey than what Canadians expect, which is a rough, tough, gritty, skilled, and expressive way of playing. Like in soccer, the Brazilians want to play samba style. They'd rather lose 5-4 than win 1-0. And this has actually played out in the World Cups before for Brazil. So sometimes the way we play is a little bit more important. So maybe think about that in terms of where are we aiming our intent. And then finally, what's an experience you have in sports that highlights the importance of beauty? So again, ideas are great, but if we can't ground it in a real world experience that has allowed us to live a more full life, well then all we're doing is talking. We're not manifesting the ancient wisdom into our direct action today. So I would love to know what you guys think about these questions. We are rapidly moving towards a conclusion here. We've got one more lecture to go, and then we're going to wrap it all up with even more practical aim on how we can take some of these ideas and bring them down into our lives. All right, see you in the next one.